Hello there guys, and welcome back to the channel. So in today's video we are going to be talking about Nico Minoru. Now, one of the two new champions in the game. Nico is going to be effectively our answer to Dark Phoenix and Serpent and a handful of other cosmics, and overall she does look quite interesting, even though I do have my worries about her, which I'm going to try and explain. Obviously she will have some defensive value as well, but we're gonna see about that. So clearly we can see that she does have access to buff immunity, acid burn, poison, and or incinerate, which you can swap out for. And annoyingly, and I really wish Kabam didn't do that, they are playing with her health bar as well. And it is going to be very important to realize how much it is happening to judge how viable she is going to be as a champion, in my opinion. But access to all the acid burns and poisons, and effectively bypassing the immunities of the opponents, whilst also utilizing buff immunity, that's incredibly rare in the game, does make her uniquely good defensively. Also, as I mentioned, she plays with her own health bar, and she utilizes the Zeal passive from her level 1 to kind of prevent her adrenaline from decaying whilst it's active. And that is my biggest worry here. As we can see, Zeal can prevent your adrenaline from decaying, yes, but number one, it's a passive that can expire. And number two, for instance, if opponent doesn't want to throw a special attack. Number two, if you do finish the fight with all of it unused, you just get the adrenaline back in the next fight effectively. But in game 1 such as Battlegrounds, there is no next fight, and that automatically means like a lot of health loss. Now again, I do think her awakened ability is going to be like crucial in general for her. Giving her, much needed extra amount of damage in a lot of matchups, because whenever a buff or personal effect on opponent would be prevented or removed by an immunity, Nico inflicts poisons. And this is also going to be kind of key of her defensive utility, in my opinion, because her fights start with this buff immunity active on you. So whenever you as much as Dex against her, you would be getting a dexterity buff, and you would be getting a poison on you. If you're immune to poison, that would be an acid burn instead, I believe. Oh no, other than poison is prevented. Okay, so that would not, maybe, does that convert to acid burn? Not entirely sure, but it probably will. And her level 1 deals a burst damage through block, and her level 2 applies buff immunity on activation. There might be also some quite annoying defensive threats hidden in her abilities too. So let's take a look at her rotation. In general, it basically tells you to ramp up initially. Normally, in most of the fights, you would really start with that buff immunity already and be getting your damage quicker. So I do think her damage might be a bit more healthy than it looks here. But the point is, you do want to drop in some heavy attacks. Your heavy attacks take away 7% of your health and store it as adrenaline. And then you do want to launch your level 2. But as we can see here, she is already a bit out of health, right? Which is not ideal if she does that to herself. Then you activate your level 1, fine, and you do have the ability to heal that up if everything goes perfect. So those are like very, very crucial things that need to be kind of like found and played around with and experimented. How well she regains her health. Obviously here it's shown that she's going to be a great Halfling counter as well, which is currently not the biggest sort of relevance for competitive game modes due to him not being out as a 7-star. Her pre-fight ability is probably the coolest thing ever for competitive play, because that typically you use champion for like one fight anyways, and you can activate all of them at the same go, which I think is quite massive. Right, let's switch to her full ability breakdown then. That's nothing, overly amazing, but in general she's marked down as 3.5 in survivability. 4 in damage, but again, this can be misleading because some high damage characters are marked down as 4, and then there's also a Destroyer who's also marked down as 4 in damage, and his damage is not great. So ease of use is 3, which is fair enough. Utility 3.5, I kind of agree, there's quite a lot of utility, it could potentially even be higher. Defender strength as 4, so that immediately indicates that she will also be annoying on defense there. So in standard fight, Nico focuses on gaining power from the opponent's buffs and then stripping them away with her buff immunity, leaving behind only poison. She also has the ability to strategically call upon the staff with her powerful pre-fight abilities, which again, in mode like Battlegrounds, is like every fight. The Human Torch pre-fight type situation where, if you're only going to do one fight, you activate it always, or whichever ones you need and want. So character class Mystic, Adrenaline, buff immunity, halt, invisibility, and poison. So strength, buff control. Nico is the second champion to be able to have opponents immune to buffs, entirely providing a powerful answer to many cosmic threats. That I agree. Buff immunity is a very rare and very powerful ability, especially because she can continuously refresh it and maintain it. Adrenaline manipulation. Nico is second champion to gain adrenaline outside of taking hit damage, and her ability to convert it more easily through health provides her a powerful means of sustaining. And again, I'm not sold on this yet. Well, partially maybe because Cyclops is the first champion with it, and let's face it, his adrenaline ability is just not good enough. It really isn't. In an age where we have champions that completely bypass damage, ability to recover some of the damage that you take from like skilled defender, threats is just not good enough. Which is why I love Cyclops as a champion. To use him, I think he's fun. I think crazy fun things can be done with him. I think for questing content, he can be amazing as an await counter. But for competitive situations, again, whenever I use Cyclops in any matchup that, he theoretically should be quite good with, utilizing his adrenaline mechanic, I just wished I used somebody else. I wished I would be using Sinister, Onslaught, Negasonic, Dazzler, or somebody. Or Cyclops, because Cyclops' adrenaline build is not powerful enough, and you still end up losing health. So why would you want to finish a fight, minus 10% health, when you have plenty of champions who could take no damage instead? We'll see how this works with Nico, because again, she does have a way to pause the adrenaline decay. She has a way to gain extra adrenaline and then, while hitting opponent, heal herself. So if that works well enough, this, could be a good thing. So anti-unstoppable, Nico has easy access and maintained halt, allowing her to hit into unstoppable opponents freely. Fair enough. So weaknesses: poison immunity against non-cosmic opponents. Nico can have trouble doing damage without access to her various poisons, but again, you can use Incinerate pre-fight. It's going to be less damage, but still going to be good. Ability, power, rate control. Nico's rotation is dependent on burst of power when her opponent either gains or is immune to a buff, and anything that denies her power will threaten to break her control of the fight. Anti-miss. One of the best ways Nico accesses adrenaline is when opponents miss, basically. But still, I don't think that's going to be that big of a deal. Maybe it will. So abilities. Let's actually get in her abilities. Blood Mage, always active. As a defender, Nico stores 40% of all damage taken as adrenaline, and while she has more than 5% adrenaline stored, she gains an indefinite 15% Flourish passive, which effectively improves her ability power rate by a set amount. Each time Nico gains a total of 5% of her max adrenaline, gain a Fury buff passive for 15 seconds, max stack 7. When Nico activates special attack, she passively converts up to X amount of adrenaline to health per level of the special attack. Nico starts each fight with 100% of the adrenaline she finished from her previous fight in the same quest. Personal Furies gain at this time gain 200% increased duration. Again, that's very good for questing. Basically means there's no real drawback. Not so good for Baliots. Hex Girl, buff Hunter. Nico's heavy charge and third light attack place an indefinite pentacle buff on the opponent. It's basically a placebo buff. It does nothing, but it is permanent. When the opponent gains a buff, Nico passively gains 2% of her max power. When one or more buffs are removed or prevented by an immunity, she gains 3%. So she doesn't get the benefits of Mystic Dispersion, but she has Mystic Dispersion at home. Kind of split into two parts. You get part of the power when they gain a buff. You get part of the power when those buffs expire. Nico does not benefit from the Mystic Dispersion Mastery. Instead, each rank increases the base potency of her personal power gains by 10%. Gain 1% of missing health as adrenaline when a buff on the opponent is prevented or removed by immunity. Cooldown 1 second. So this is going to periodically top off your adrenaline and therefore give you ability to heal when you're activating special attacks or striking the opponent. Nico can inflict buff immunity debuff for 11 seconds. Refreshed when Nico casts any special attack. As defender, this is passive instead. Does not apply if active. That's just mean. But okay. Staff of 1, pre-fight ability. You can pick any of these pre-fight abilities, but you can only use them once per quest. They last until the opponent is defeated. As defender, Nico always casts the first one, which is start the fight with buff immunity for 11 seconds. Again, at that period of time, you can't even really dex, so you're going to get poisoned, and she's going to get extra power. So that is something to keep in mind, but you can start every fight in Baliots, one fight per quest, with a buff immunity immediately. Then Absorb, Nico gains 55% Stimulate passive while blocking. What does Stimulate do? Doesn't tell me. It did something useful. Nico gains immunity to poison and rapture effects, which is fair enough. That is very good and rare immunity to raptures. There aren't too many champions who are. But again, the fact that she isn't rapture immune as defender, I suppose it's good. Nico's poison effects are replaced by incinerates but deal 30% reduced damage. And this is what you do in poison immune matchups against non-cosmic opponents, I believe. I wouldn't say non-cosmic, maybe science. Heavy attack. As an attacker, the first hit consumes 70% of Nico's current health and stores it as adrenaline. So here is like the first place there. On the final hit or when cancelling this attack with special 1 or 2, gain a Zeal passive for 6 seconds. Zeal effectively prevents your adrenaline from decaying. Special attack 1, Murder of Crows. On activation, inflict a health passive for 13 seconds, allowing her to bypass Unstoppable. Refresh when Nico costs any special attack, does not apply if active. Final hit bursts deals a burst of energy damage, increased by 20% for each damaging effect on the opponent up to 10. This can trigger through block. As defender, this potency is reduced by 50%. Nonetheless, this is something you definitely want to be able to dex out of. Under the final hit, Nico gains invisibility passive for 4 seconds. If this causes an attack to miss, it goes on cooldown for 15 seconds. But again, it will be important to cause an opponent to miss with her SIG. Special attack 2, What Ails You. Each hit inflicts poison debuff for 30 seconds. Those are very long poisons. Pause during opponent's special attacks. If a cosmic opponent is immune to any of the Nico's poisons, she inflicts a matching acid burn instead. So again, this is specifically only against cosmics, such as Halkling or Medusa, for example. Against non-cosmic champions, you would have to use the pre-fight to go for Incinerates. Final hit inflicts Nico's buff immunity. As defender, this applies on activation. Again, that is very annoying. Special attack 3, never really gonna use it, but again, this is against extra attack rating for each damaging effect on opponent. First time this attack is used each fight, Nico increases duration of personal effects by 50% for the rest of the fight. Again, good in longer fights in general. You're probably just not gonna do that. Signature ability, very important for Nico. Whenever a buff or personal effect on the opponent other than poison is prevented or removed by an immunity, Nico inflicts poison passive for 12 seconds, max stacks 20. Personal effects on the opponent are paused during Nico's special attacks. When Nico causes an attack to miss, she gains X amount of adrenaline, cooldown 0.5 seconds. So after your special one, you want your opponent to miss because that gives you extra bunch of adrenaline, which enables you to heal. So again, it is a risky business Kabam's attempting here with the adrenaline. We'll see how well it works out. But it does look quite good if the damage holds up as well. So those are the conditions for Nico to be a great champion. Number 1, what is her damage in more generic matchups where opponent doesn't gain 50,000 buffs? Number 2 is how well and how effective is the whole adrenaline mechanic here. Now, Kabam typically shuffles the first champion with a new mechanic and does quite okay or well with the second one. So that does give some hope to Nico. But again, you cannot just put a blind trust in it. You genuinely need to see whether you can finish majority of the fights with fully regained health, or that will be a bit tricky. Also, watching her deep dive, I kind of did get an impression that she's quite squishy, which often can be a deal breaker for good champions, or at the very least heavily hinder them. For instance, like Wiccan is so squishy. He would be way more popular if he had a wee bit more damage, but if he wouldn't be like so darn squishy. And there are champions who are squishy and still do well, but it is a fairly significant thing how much chip damage you end up taking. So synergy bonuses with Carolina Dean. Nico, new pre-fight spell, Siphon. When the opponent finishes special attack, Nico power steals 80% of the remaining power over 2 seconds. Oh, that is actually good synergy. Sisters of Abby, Scarlet Witch Sigil, Nico, new pre-fight spell Ritual. Nico consumes 30% of her current health at the start of the fight and stores it as adrenaline. I don't even like that much. Again, other synergy champions, okay. West Coast, Best Coast. Teenage champions during the opponent's special attacks, pause, hunter, and primal sense up to 5 personal tracking fury. Ooh. During the opponent's special attacks, pause, hunter, and primal senses, 5 personal tracking fury and blockable or health effects. Alright, that's kind of cool. That's very good for Tiger, actually. Pride. All champions get. Okay, that's fine. Recommended master is obviously Mystic Dispersion. Recall, Liquid Courage, Double Edge. Ooh, interesting. So she is a recall friendly champion as well, which isn't showcased, but that definitely isn't going to bring those masteries back to Battlegrounds. Despair. Okay, that's fair enough. Inequity. Okay, fair enough as well. Makes sense. Recommended stat focus. Offensive stat focus. Adrenaline. It's kind of interesting because we just about never use that. Critical rating, damage, or special damage. And more adrenaline from being hit means more furies. Okay. Defensive block efficiency, physical resistance. Good. Recommended relics. Ghost Rider. Okay, cool. Fine. So there we go. That is Nico. Overall, I do get a feeling that she is going to be a fairly significant champion if she's not too squishy, her adrenaline mechanic works well enough, and her damage rolls up. Any of those fail, well, then let's see. Let me know what you guys think. But I still have Caroline Dean to talk later. Alright, see you. Bye-bye. Hello there, guys, and welcome back to the channel. So we have all the information about